but you are taking something from as many disciplines as possible. So you're almost deconstructing the notion of discipline. Whereas in interdisciplinary engagement, I acknowledge you as a medical scientist and as a natural scientist and as a geneticist and as an architecture specialist. And I work with those speciality fields in detail. But in a transdisciplinary engagement, you take concepts from each discipline, not necessarily even theory. You take an idea and an idea and an idea. You collect the dots and you string them together in a new argument. That's transdisciplinary engagement. I love it when my management students talk to me about lessons they take from architecture, chemistry, and the biomedical science. I mean, that's magic. So in Mode 2 learning, you are not interested in any specialized answer. You never claim that this is a fact and this is right. It's only an idea. It's only an idea. So you don't categorize, you may do some analysis, but you're very sensitive of posting this as the truth. You say, this is an idea. This may be right. And it embraces the idea that there are many voices. And it's important in the Mode 2 learning that you bring the other voices, the voices that you hear, that others don't hear, and that you push them to the front. And say, I'm introducing this voice to you. I love it when people publish and said, I was at a gathering, and somebody argued, and somebody said this, and they quoted. They would say, social gathering, 3rd of August, 7 p.m. in Lagos. Why just in the social sciences?
Because I suppose they're allowed to
Can be anywhere. Can be anywhere. The best inventions in the world did not even happen in a scientific environment. Penicillin is a great example. It happened by accident in a guy's dentistry. So now we can't record it, because that wasn't peer reviewed. And yet we use it today. Sorry.
I've actually found that the social space is something that encourages me or gives me inspiration, so to speak. Because I've met with other people who have questioned our methods of doing things, of saying, we have indigenous knowledge, we have already done it, why aren't you working with us and testing it in the lab to see what we're saying is true? So those conversations are inspiring to say, why did you do it like this? What's going on there? So I think it's time we embrace it as well and find ways of bringing the two together, working together.
I think the time to embrace it existed forever. We just didn't have the guts to embrace it, but it's there. It is there. So the notion of diversity, of not having a specialist in the room, that's very important. It terrifies our PhD students in the introduction when I tell them there are no specialists at Da Vinci. Then you can see some of them say, oh goodness, what's going to happen here? Well, we don't have any specialists. We don't. And then the last thing that I want to refer to on Mode 2, just at a high level, is that it's not about a normative engagement. You do not want to say that this is the truth. So the notion of benchmark can make a contribution, but it does not mean you embrace it as the answer. The fact that 5 people said that this is a glass does not mean that this is a glass. I could see something else here. Could be a glass, but it could also be a lid for something else. Whatever. Right? So those, I think, in a nutshell, Ray, is from my view the principles or the pillars of Mode 2 engagement. And we should ask ourselves as researchers and prospective researchers and as supervisors, how ready are we to embrace that? I must admit, we will struggle to embrace this frame of innovation if we can't embrace that frame of modality. Because you will somewhere you will get caught up, it will become tricky to keep these things in space.